5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
You're listening to the GHT Overland podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the GHT Overland podcast.
Aside from a summer in Alaska, a winter in Mexico, Patagonia, I think, is a place you might have a hard time getting me out of.
Oh, that's all right. You'll find me in Mexico with my drinks.
Wasn't where I was going with that, but it might be a really good idea.
Taking a break? It's okay.
Yeah. You stay there. I'll go to Patagonia. I'll see you in a year or so.
A year? Okay, so can we make it like 7 days max? Because I think you'd miss me.
17?
No, 7.
70.
7.
We'll make sure there's a 7 involved. The Pan American is just so intoxicating. So, like, really, it's got like 90% of everything that both of us love. So we probably should do
Patagonia.
Some of it together. Especially the mountains, the lakes, the diverse climates, the food, the culture. Not a place you want to power through just to say you did it.
Oh, absolutely not. Like mystical, magical, icy blue waters. Like amazing, jaw-dropping.
Yeah, you almost have to put like definitely yourself or somebody in the picture just so people know it's real. Because it's so amazing, they'll probably think that you hijacked the picture.
Right. So with an average 60 degree weather and up to, 120 miles in the winds?
Oh, in the winter, yeah, 120 mile an hour winds.
That's crazy. Like, I'll join you, but it has to be in the calm of winds.
I want to be there for a full year. I love crazy weather. The windier, the better. I don't know, 120. I might need to gain some weight. I don't get blown away. And we learned some really cool things about that region. And they have a really good, it sounds like a nice beer culture. So tonight I'm enjoying a nice IPA. That just got me excited to just jump on a plane. Screw driving there.
Nope. But that's the part of the adventure.
Look at it, check it out first. It's, what do they call it? Recon. So a bit of a correction up front. We introduced this week's guest as being in Argentina. Fact is, they were in northern Patagonia during our interview.
Oops.
Our guests this week have spent just over 2 years on the Pan Am. They have a love for the mountains, a desire to immerse themselves in the different cultures on their own schedule.
Oh, I like that part. On their own schedule.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the GHT Overland podcast. This is where you get the greatest interviews and insights from overland travelers around the globe, learning from their stories and experience as we interview overlanders from places like Australia, Africa, the Americas, Portugal, and today, Argentina. You will learn the basics to the advanced in overlanding, so buckle up and get ready for a new adventure. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lisa. Today's featured guests are Ben and Rachel. Ben was born and raised in Switzerland, while Rachel is originally from Seattle, Washington. Then relocated to Switzerland in 2014, falling in love with the mountains. Ben and Rachel met shortly after Ben returned from a 6-week overland trip to the Baltics and Scandinavia. After a few years, he convinced Rachel to give this overland thing a try. In tow is Mitzi, a miniature dachshund. Rachel adopted Mitzi 7 years ago, and she's moved overseas with her, sporting an impressive passport, traveling through 22 countries and counting. Today, we are humbled to have them join us to learn from their experiences and stories of overland travel.
Do dogs actually have passports?
Yes, I'm going to say yes.
So without further ado, Ben and Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for having us.
Hi, and to answer your question, Mitzi does have a passport.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. That is terrific. And we are absolutely grateful that you've taken the time all the way from Argentina to join us. So thank you for that. And if you would, fill us in on any blanks we may have left out in your intro and tell us a little bit more about you.
I'll fill in for Ben. I'd say he's been dreaming of overlanding his whole life. He's pretty obsessed with it, and I thought he was completely crazy when I met him. Got this great idea, we should go live in a car and drive around. But I think it's not so crazy now.
Yeah. What can I say about Rachel? She definitely does have a crazy dog with her that I started to fall in love to. And yeah, we're now traveling since 2 years, and we still haven't killed each other. So that's great.
This is good. I'm excited to talk about traveling with a dog a little bit later. So I'm looking forward to that. But describe to us, if you would, like where you're at, if you were to walk outside right now, describe to us and our listeners, what would you see? What is the backdrop like?
So we're in the northern part of Patagonia, like 4 or 5 hours north of Bariloche, in a little town, in a little Airbnb that we decided to rent because when you go outside, you see clouds and rain and some flooded streets. But we're around a lot of pine trees. It reminds me quite a bit of the Northwest. So it gives me a nice, like, home feeling here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. When the weather is good, you can actually see lots of mountains and lakes, and it's really, really beautiful place here. But yeah, right now it's all clouds and rain.
Is it typically like the rainy season there right now?
It's like late fall. I think it's maybe similar to what we know back in Switzerland and Seattle, as it's just that time of year. It's not really rain. I don't know. It was pretty sunny a week ago, and in a few days it's going to be sunny again. It's just passing through it.
Got it.
And then we'll be back to camping.
Nice.
Tell us what inspired overland travel for you.
It's hard to tell what exactly made me dream about overlanding. I've just always loved different cultures, and I always wanted to see more of the world than just tiny Switzerland. So I don't know. That's what made me. I just wanted to see the world and learn about different cultures. That's like the most important thing. And on the other hand, what I also did want to do is like live a different life. Like, don't just go to work and get up in the morning, go to work, get back home in the evening, and repeat 5 days a week. Have a weekend and go back. And I guess overlanding, the way we do it at least, is obviously completely different. We can get up when we want, we can do what we want, we can travel where we want to go, and this freedom is pretty cool.
And I'd say Ben inspired me to do it. I thought this was crazy because for me, I wanted to live overseas, and I fulfilled that dream when I moved to Switzerland. And for me, it was still an adventure living there. And Ben's sense of adventure is one of the things that drew me to him. So doing this trip is fulfilling his life dream, and I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, did you guys spend a lot of time planning this overland trip before you left? And would you recommend to our listeners either spending more or less time than what you did?
Well, I wouldn't say we did planning in a sense of where do we want to go, and at what time do we want to be where. I did a lot of planning in a sense of what car do I want. I knew quite a few people who did similar trips, either in Americas or through Asia or through Africa back home. And obviously I asked these people and talked with them and kind of tried to figure out how is it to, like, what's important to know. But in the end, when you're on the road, everything is different than what you expected it to be. Like all the fears you had, they will go away, but new problems you haven't thought about, it will come up. So planning, I wouldn't say planning is important in a sense of where to be when, but like just have a general idea of how will it be, and plan in a sense. For us, what was important, have enough budget so that we don't have to worry while we travel if we can do certain activities or not. That's totally, I guess, up to each individual.
Yeah, I'd say we definitely didn't plan a specific route or when we're going to be where, which dropped us in the rainy season a few times. So what I think we would have changed is we ended up spending so much time in Mexico, which I loved. And part of me thinks we should have spent a little less time so we didn't get caught in the rainy season of Central America. That would have been smart to make a little bit of an overview plan. But at the same time, we can't think of what we would have cut out of our time in Mexico.
Yeah, and where did you guys start from?
So I started in Halifax. So I shipped car to Halifax in May 2017, actually just 2 years ago. And then I spent about 5 months traveling through the United States by my own while Rachel was still in Switzerland. And then in LA, when I was in LA, I flew back to Switzerland. We got rid of our apartment and grabbed the dog and wife and flew back to LA.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, so we mid-November is when we made it to Mexico. And then we ended up spending 5 months in Mexico and getting to Central America just in time for the rainy season.
Oh, perfect.
Do you guys swim?
I didn't know that you wanted to swim in that.
Well, no.
Yeah, the Landy has a snorkel, so.
That's good. So tell us about your current vehicle and any name you may have given it.
All right. We have a Land Rover Defender from 2002 with TD5 engine. It has a popped-up roof. I guess that's one of the major changes I had to do, or I wanted to do after my first trip. It doesn't have a name though. It's just the Landy. I love the car, but I don't know. I wouldn't know a name to give it. It's just the car in the end.
The Landy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And how long? When did you buy the Land Rover? Was that back in Switzerland, I assume?
Yeah, it's actually my third Land Rover I had. Or I have. I had two older models from the 80s, which initially I bought to travel with them, but they were the gasoline engine types, and they were just not economical to drive long distance, and they were really, really old. Okay. So I bought this one in 2012, I think in April 2012, used with like 150,000 kilometers. And yeah, it was basically stock when I bought it. So I had local companies make the roof for me, and a German company do the interior. And I did the electronics mostly by myself.
Okay. And one of the things that have come up recently is insurance. Do you have any thoughts or experience to share on getting insurance as an overland traveler?
Yeah, getting insurance in the United States is got quite a bit more difficult. Actually, when I started my trip, Like I did in December 16, I organized like insurance and stuff like that. And when I actually wanted to buy it in April 17, they were all like, no, sorry, we can no longer sell you the insurance because whatever reason they had, I still don't really know why. So if you have an old car that's like, I think older than 20 years, it's really difficult to get an insurance. What's the most successful way is to get an address somewhere in the United States and try, Progressive Insurance? I think if you have a US address, you can probably get insurance via them. Otherwise, it's pretty much impossible as far as I know, if your car is older than, I think, 20 years, which ours isn't. So I could get the insurance via thumb insurance, but it was really expensive. It was like 3 times what the initial offer was in the beginning. So yeah, you have to think about that, I guess.
So is that what you use? Is it Progresso? Is that what you still use today? Or was that just for when you went through the States?
That was only for the States and Canada. Okay. Afterwards, it depends on the country. So for Mexico, you can do online insurance. That's no problem. It doesn't cost a lot of money. There are tons of companies that will insure you. I think we went with Baja Bound Insurance. For Central America, there's some countries you don't need insurance, so we didn't buy any. And the ones where you have to have insurance, you'll buy it usually at the border, like Costa Rica.
Yeah, and they often won't take an external insurance. You have to buy, like in Belize and Costa Rica, they have their national insurance that you have to buy at the border, even if you have full coverage. We've had
from another company, you still need to give them your money.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So for us, I don't know about you guys, if you're late eaters, but it's about breakfast time. So tell us about because I'm thinking about food. Tell us about your cooking setup, if you would, and any recommendations you have for our listeners putting their kitchen cooking setup together.
So we don't have a lot of space inside, so we don't have an indoor kitchen. And that's the biggest frustration when the weather is bad for me, is that we can't cook inside. We have a Coleman gas stove and a table that we have to cook outside with, which it's a great stove in terms of being economical and easy to refill because we just use gasoline from the gas station. I think if we could change anything, would add some sort of cover over the back door where we have a little table so I could cook when it's raining. Because when it's raining, we basically eat sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
Or pasta.
Yeah, we have a small little butane stove, like what you would take backpacking, which we can cook with inside, but you basically can just make hot water. You can't make any gourmet meal with that. So we can use it to make coffee in the morning, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
And boil. And I guess we can make pasta if we need, but that's what I would change. Make it possible to cook in the rain. Thinking we have a great setup for good weather, but in the bad weather, it could have some improvements.
So having like an awning or some sort of a cover would be something that would be super helpful for you?
Yeah.
And then other than that, like the Coleman stove and a portable table, do you feel like as long as the weather isn't pouring down on you, that works pretty good for you? Are you pretty happy with it?
Yeah, I've been happy with it. It's a 2-burner, so I can cook 2 things at once, like make a sauce and make pasta or whatever we're going with that day. And just the ease of getting the fuel and how cheap it is, because we just have to, since we were just using unleaded fuel from the gas station.
And what is that one thing you value the most, either on or in your vehicle?
The coffee maker, definitely. And we have 2, luckily, because we have an AeroPress, which I really like. It makes a really nice cup of coffee. But the seal on the plunger recently it's gotten old, overused, because I drink probably 3 cups in the morning, and it's no longer sealing. So we have a backup, a Biletti, which it's also really good, just not as easy to clean up. But since the AeroPress doesn't work, I'm really happy to have 2 sources of coffee and not have to resort to Nescafe. Ben probably has a totally different answer than me.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ben, did you have anything different?
I think, like, of all the modifications I did to the car, I think the pop top was the one that has like the most really value to us. Before that, I used to, well, in the beginning, I just slept in the back. I was traveling alone, so I didn't need much space. I just had like a board in the back, and I could sleep in there. Which is great because you don't have any weight on roof. You don't have much space, and it only really works if you travel alone, or you really don't need a lot of space if you do. After that, I had a rooftop tent, which is nice because you sleep kind of outside, but you sleep on a tent, but you're on your car, so you don't have to be afraid of any critters and animals and whatnot, because they usually don't get up your car. But when it's raining, it's the worst. You can't get anywhere without getting wet, right? You can't change from the tent into your car without getting wet. You just have no space at all. And after a few days of rain, everything will be wet, and it's pretty horrible. I had that in Norway. After a week of rain, I was just so frustrated with the whole thing. That's where I basically decided I need this pop-up roof. And with the pop-up roof, it opens up so much space inside. We can attach the bed basically on the roof, so we can stand inside. If we have the bed down, we have like somebody can sit up there, somebody can sit downstairs, and we both have a bit of our space. So that's really nice. And even if it rains a lot, you keep dry. You don't have to go outside when you wake up in the morning, and first thing that happens is you get wet. You can just get up, make coffee, and get the day started dry.
Yeah, it makes sense. Is there different brands of pop-up roofs for a Land Rover, or any recommendations there for our people, listeners that have Land Rovers?
Yeah, so I have one from a Swiss company called Overland Technics. They are rather expensive, but they're good quality. There are a ton, like in Europe, there are a ton of companies actually making rooftop, popped-up tents, pop-up roofs. So I guess they're all pretty similar. They all open somehow. They all have some shocks to support the tent. I guess it really depends on what you're looking for, which manufacturer is close by. I think Alucab is the most used one that you can get pretty much everywhere all over the world. But yeah, I guess look what your local Land Rover mechanic recommends. Maybe test it, have a look at it before you buy it. Make sure it has a comfortable mattress, and yeah, that's about it.
What was it that clinched your decision to go with the one that you got?
I've been to this mechanic since he basically opened the shop, so I know the guy. I know the company. I know they make good things. That was the main reason. I know people who had this roof, so and nobody had problems with it during their travels. So it's really just experience from other people and from just knowing the company for like 15 years before traveling.
Oh, well, there you
And
go.
it withstood the Patagonian wind, so it's good quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you originally packed that you never used or removed from your overall setup?
I started out with a drone. The what's it called, Mavic Pro drone from DJI. I sold that one like when I was done with the United States. For main reason really is just it's so much work to have it run. So whenever I wanted to use it, either the batteries were empty or the app wanted to update, and I had no network because I was like in the middle of nowhere, or there was always something that didn't work. So I was just I sold that one, and obviously it's a lot of work to make good videos out of whatever you film along the way.
And Ben does a lot of photography, and I think that's more his passion than to make the drone videos. And the photography is great. I think his product there is good enough. We don't need videos too.
Yeah, I saw a couple pictures on Instagram yesterday that you took, and they were fantastic.
Thank you.
Really,
that was
gorgeous.
We had amazing weather when we were in Torres del Paine National Park. We had like the best weather you can imagine. It was no wind, a little bit of clouds and sunshine, and that just made for really good pictures. That was easy there to make good pictures. But it's something I started 10-ish years ago, photography, and I just really like to have that memory. I don't sell or do something with my pictures except for putting it on our blog, and at the end of the trip gonna print probably more than one photo book out of the best ones.
It'll be hard to choose, right?
Oh yeah.
We'll have 10 photo books, I'm sure.
And any tips for traveling with a dog?
One thing a lot of people have questions about is border crossing with the dog. And I think that can be the most stressful or complicated until you get used to the process. With Mitzi, she has her passport, which has all of her vaccinations in it. And this is a standard European pet passport. So it has her rabies vaccination, her all the other vaccinations she needs, and includes like the dates she's received, like her flea and tick medication and a dewormer. So before you cross the border with a dog, you generally need to go get a health certificate from a local vet. And what they need to see is the vaccine records and the dates of all the medication that she's received. And when you have a pet passport, it's really easy. It's like a one-stop shop for the records, and they can fill out their form and you're out in a couple minutes. It's a lot easier than having pages and pages of paperwork from the vet back home. So from the States, you don't get a pet passport, but I think there's some you can buy online or even probably print out from the internet so that you can have like a one-page easy summary to keep all your vet records together, or just be super organized about it. That helps a lot. We went to a vet in Costa Rica to get the health certificate, and she told us we were the most organized she'd ever seen, and I didn't think I was doing anything special. I just had a pet passport. Other than that, I don't know. We debated whether to bring her along with us when we started the trip. She's an older dog. We weren't sure if she would like this constant change of location and not having a home. Turns out she loves it. She loves being in the car. She loves everything about traveling. She never has to be alone. And I don't think she prevented us from doing a whole lot of things. She's older, so she sleeps a lot. So when we want to go hiking in the national park or something and she's not allowed to come, she waits in the car, and she's good about that.
Yeah, the only thing we couldn't do is like multi-day trekkings in the national parks, obviously, because we can't leave her in the car for multiple days, and we can't take her with us into the parks or into the trails at least.
And she's a bit high strung, so leaving her with a dog sitter isn't a good option for us, but there's a lot of info online for stuff like that. With iOverlander, Wiki Overland, Animal Travelers Group, there's so much information available, and from other travelers have been such a huge help. Mm. So we're glad she came.
Yeah, it was super cool.
I can envision her with her paws up on the front of the dash with a little pair of sunglasses on.
What?
Awesome.
Not
Mitzi
far off.
traveling.
Yeah.
That's funny. So what are your current top 2 or 3 destinations, along with a little detail on what made them so special for you?
Patagonia was one of the top 3 for us, I think. Although it's fresh in our memory, so it might just be this recent awesome experience stands out as one of the best. But the hiking is fantastic in Patagonia, and the landscapes. And we got to see penguins down here and all sorts of cool things.
Yeah, we've been in Patagonia now March, April, and I think it was a perfect time to be here. We were a bit worried that it's already late in the season, but the weather was perfect. There were not that many tourists, and we're mountain people, so for us this was like paradise. We really liked that one.
We both agreed, for the second one, Mexico in general. And I think a lot of people that do the Pan Am trip put Mexico way up top. And it was a huge surprise for me. I only knew Mexico for the resort cities. And then when we got into the highlands, I just fell in love with the country. The people, the food, the villages, the color, the culture, everything.
The third, I would probably say Colombia or maybe Ecuador. We both really, it's really hard to tell. We liked a lot of the countries. We disliked practically none. So, but I think Colombia is another one of these gems, with extremely friendly people, beautiful villages and towns. Very diverse from jungle to the Andes. You got like everything there. The only thing with Colombia is the driving in the mountains is just nerve-wracking, because they have their like a lot of the main highways that cross from west to east or vice versa are obviously going over the few mountain
passes.
Mountain passes.
Yeah.
And they're all like 2 lanes, so you have no
2 lanes with tons of semi trucks, buses, crazy traffic, overtaking on blind corners. It was.
And the semis, they like crawl up the hills with, I don't know, 15 kilometers an hour.
But we loved it in spite of it.
There are so many great countries in the Pan Am, so it's hard to have top 3, but I guess Patagonia, Mexico, Colombia.
Where did you get the best coffee?
Colombia.
Definitely, yeah.
Hands down.
That might be why.
That's cool. So any tips you guys have for purchasing fresh meats, vegetables, groceries in general, as you've gone along your trip in Pan Am?
We don't eat a lot of meat, so we can't really help you with that. Otherwise,
just the local markets usually. I think I'd say the vegetable desert was Baja California for us, and it might have been the time of year, but the best vegetables we found in Baja were in Walmart. But other than that, everywhere's just been, if you're in a village, there's usually what we would call a farmer's market, but it's just the normal market, and you can get vegetables, fruits for cheap.
And that's your preference over going to like a larger supermarket?
We go to the supermarket to load up on things like pasta and canned goods and stuff like that. But if you can get it from the local market, it's usually better quality and cheaper.
Yeah, and the fruits you get in Central America and also in the north of South America are just so good. You can't compare, and they're so cheap. It's like, we'll miss that down here in Patagonia already. And
you go to the local market, and there's going to be a lot of vegetables you don't know, and especially fruits. And usually the local vendors will hand you a piece. Yeah, you just point and say, what's that? And they'll cut a slice off and let you try. And then you know if you want to buy it or not.
Ooh, I like taste testing.
Oh boy, we'd be there all day.
Oh, yummy. What's a favorite meal or recipe you enjoy while traveling? On a good day besides that sandwich.
Our go-to is usually lentils, or it has been lately, because we can just cut up a lot of vegetables, throw in some spices, top it up with lentils and rice, and then we have a healthy meal. Ben makes really good pasta. He's really good at making pasta sauce from scratch. That's what he did last night. It was nice. And it's always different every time, depending on what you buy, what you use. So I'd say those are our two go-to meals.
And how do you generally do your laundry on the road?
We almost always go to a local lavanderia, get just a laundromat. Yeah. They usually do it for you. We prefer to do it ourselves, but that's not really a thing in Latin America, at least. In the States, I always did it myself. That's the most easiest. You can control what goes into which temperature. So it's, yeah.
It always comes out with too much like perfume smell. They just love to dump in the perfume smell. So it comes out smelling like a box of potpourri, but it's kind of your only option. It beats smelling dirty, but.
And hygiene. Do you have a shower and toilet set up? Or what's your recommendation for keeping it simple and hygienic on the road?
We don't have a toilet, and we only have we have a shower kind of thing. So we have a water tank. It's only 35 liters. And we have a pump, and we have a shower head basically. But the water is cold, so we used it like in the warm areas. Otherwise, we just go to campgrounds or hostels every now and then to have good showers. Otherwise, we wash ourselves in the river, like very basic.
Yeah, it makes us a little less flexible than a self-contained vehicle. It makes us smaller and lighter, but when we're in cities, we can't really wild camp like a lot of people prefer to do. Or, I mean, when we're out in the mountains, it kind of doesn't matter. It's like normal camping.
So, Ben, you've got a kitchen remodel coming up, but is there anything else you'd change about your current setup?
Yeah, I guess there are a few things I would probably change. For one, having an awning in the back, that's definitely something that we'll need to change. Apart from that, it's more things on the car, like our spare tire carrier fell apart like 3 times. So we had it welded 3 times by now, because it's just not holding up with the bad roads. This is definitely something that we have to replace and invest in a good one. This was a very cheap carrier, and I thought that's good enough, but it definitely isn't. There is a lot of small repairs that kind of accumulated over time that aren't worth to go through the hassle to get them fixed on the road, that we need to fix when we're back. But in general, I think the car holds up pretty well. The setup is...
Yeah, for the size, the layout, I think, is pretty good. I just want a big rig. I mean, I get a lot of rig jealousy from other cars on the road that I see.
So you can kind of stretch out a little bit more?
Yeah, I could use more space, I think.
Yeah.
I'd like more space. Ben likes that we're compact. It makes us more flexible about what roads we can take. And I more think about when we're at a campground and I see these huge MAN trucks and they have Nespresso machines inside, and I get so much rig jealousy.
So there you go. From a doggy passport, car insurance, to Patagonia penguins. What an amazing, fun interview with Ben and Rachel.
I'm going to have to agree with Rachel. having a big rig.
Seriously?
Yeah, you gotta have elbow room. And if you're both working on something, compact is good, but you gotta have breathing room. And then the smell of espresso in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Rachel, we're on your side on this one.
Our interview with Ben and Rachel is our longer format interview, so we split these into 2 episodes for your downloading pleasure. Don't worry, new episodes are released each Thursday.
In next week's episode, we learn more about the finer details of Ben and Rachel's overlanding setup, discuss financing, and enjoy more road stories from their travels, learning valuable tips and ideas. It's a really good one.
Remember to check out the show notes page on our website at ghteoverland.com/podcasts. Select the Grande Hate episode. All the details and helpful links are already there for you.
Be sure to send your questions, suggestions, and feedback to the GHT Overland Podcast at gmail.com. We'd love it if you'd connect with us on the social medias at GHT Overland. Share this episode with your friends who enjoy travel off the beaten path or off the beaten path curious.
If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the world to us if you did 2 things to help out. Rate and review the podcast, that's 1, and subscribe. Giving the GHT Overland Podcast a little extra love on your podcast platform of choice. Thank you, and we will see you next Thursday for part 2 of the GHT Overland Podcast with Ben and Rachel. Bye.